We're so stuck in a loop because every 3 months, a new tool promises to finally be useful AI agents that changes everything. It started with AutoGPT and then Manus. This month, it's ClaudeBot, now renamed Moltbot. The demos, of course, look incredible. Autonomous emails, calendar management, real-world tasks, the kind of tasks that you can just think of in your daily life. There was one guy who even got it to negotiate a car deal and saved more than $4,000. But a lot of times, open source doesn't mean free, and autonomous doesn't mean easy. When you factor in the $200 monthly API bills and the hours of system engineering required to keep it alive, it can both be great and terrible at the same time. So I went down this Moltbot rabbit hole for 3 days. I flipped my opinions for 3 times. By the end, I realized there are 3 questions that determines everything, and most people aren't asking them. So let's start with, what is Moltbot exactly? Simply put, it's an AI assistant that runs like 24/7 on your own hardware. It could be a Mac Mini, could be a Raspberry Pi, could be a cheap cloud server. And you control it through apps that you already use, like WhatsApp, Slack, or Discord. I think this use case by now is pretty well known, and that was the exact use case that get me feel really excited about Moltbot. Now, this user sent a message through WhatsApp and said, "Buy me a Hyundai hybrid. Blue or green, brown interior, within 50 miles of Boston. Contact each dealer for the best price." And here's what the agent did. Do you know that feeling when you needed to buy a car? The endless search, the calling the dealers who immediately start pressuring you, trying to negotiate when you have no idea if the price is fair. So this Moltbot agent went to Reddit right after it received that message to buy the Hyundai car. It found that most buyers were paying around $58,000 for this car. So now it knows what fair looks like. And then it hunted down matching inventory, filled out dealer contact forms, and here's what it gets interesting. It started playing dealers against each other, monitoring emails, sending competing quotes back and forth. A few days later, boom, you got $4,200 off. The final price, the guys got the car with only 50K something. That's much lower than the average price you can find on Reddit. The whole time, the user just occasionally checked his WhatsApp. And that's that easy. Now, you need to compare this with something like Claude Cowork, which I use very often. I use it to help me like rename a lot of research files or clean up transcriptions. Some useful stuff, but they're all quite tiny cases. And however, if you put that compared to the use case I just mentioned, that it can automatically help someone to negotiate a car deal, that felt very different. So 3 things stood out here. 1, availability. Like, Cowork only works when the app is open, whereas Moltbot, it runs 24/7. Second is the control. First, like with Moltbot, it's open source, it's your hardware, your data, and it feels like that you have the control and you don't have to worry whether your data will be trained by Anthropic. And finally, capability. Anything pretty much your computer can do, like emails, smart home controls, or phone calls, GitHub repository. Basically, nothing that you can't think of, Moltbot cannot potentially achieve for you. And this is when I started getting excited. I started writing a research piece ready to recommend it heavily. Wait, what am I getting excited about? Technically, isn't this just an agent plus a tool calling? Like LangChain or AutoGPT were doing similar things in the last couple of years, and same as Claude Cowork. Maybe I should re-examine the use cases that had excited me, and I started to have questions. The car buying case, the article doesn't tell you how many times it failed before it worked, or how much debugging the guy was doing, or how many edge cases that he ran into. I also found this other guy who was sharing his use case on YouTube with setting up Moltbots to trade on polymarket. It's the kind of prediction markets which with sky-high risk, and I don't know whether it's a practical use case, but that to me, it's pretty much gambling, but with extra steps. And then I found another use case. This person was using Moltbot to help them file an insurance claim from end to end. Okay, that sounds pretty handy. But a question though, how often do you actually file insurance claims? So these were really fascinating showcase demos, best case scenarios, but were those also the daily reality? What about, let's take another step back, and then we can look at what's the actual cost before we come back and re-examine the use case. And when I talk about cost, I don't just mean money. There's one thing, people always confuse between open source and free, which in this case isn't free. For example, to start with, you need hardware running 24/7 in the background. That's at least $5 a month minimum cloud bill, not to mention you need to know how to set up a cloud server, or a $600 Mac Mini humming in the corner. And that's only the hardware part. Then there's the AI itself. So there was one user mentioned that they ran Moltbot for about a week, and then already burned through 180 million tokens. Or that can be a $200 per month Claude subscription, just to make sure that the Moltbot doesn't stop halfway on a semi-complex task. But here's where most people hit a wall. You saw the demo, you got excited, you downloaded it and followed the instructions, and then error messages. You Google it, you try again. Okay, now this time you fix the error. Unfortunately, there's another one. You then spent your Saturday afternoon debugging something that was supposed to save you time. That was a lot of excited people. But if you look at the issues section, you will start to see how people were having problems when they tried to set up the Moltbot. For example, you could see can't get it to work, or node install falls, or having issues with my setups. Like, you would find dozens, if not hundreds, of just can't get it working. The gap between people who started and the people who actually got it running started to make me wonder. Now, here's one more thing, and it's slightly worrying. A security researcher discovered that hundreds of Moltbot deployments were exposed on the internet. Not the kind of authentications on the web admin's interface, just open. The attackers could view the API keys, read months of the private conversations on Slack, Telegram, or on your WhatsApp, execute the commands as root. And this wasn't some kind of sophisticated exploit, it was just misconfigurations. But here's the deeper problem, because by design, AI agents need deep system access to be useful. Credentials, manage integrations, or execute writes, all centralized in one single place. If you now have a think how we traditionally do cybersecurity, it would be least privilege or sandboxing or separation, but those methods directly conflict with what makes agents valuable. This isn't about Moltbot specifically. It's a fundamental problem with all AI agents. And here's the cost that nobody talks about when people were so excited about Moltbot. Here's the thing I called productivity theater. That people spend 10 hours configuring automation that saves them what, like 20 minutes a week? But okay, maybe it feels productive. Looks impressive in demos though. Really, how much debugging went into that car buying case? I don't know, like, the person didn't say on his article. I bet real money that it wasn't exactly that smooth. Now, here's a quick math. If you only occasionally automating tasks, is the return of investment actually there? I wasn't so sure. Now, this name should sound really familiar to you. It's called AutoGPT. It hits 100,000 GitHub stars in the first few weeks. People were literally calling it AGI. There were a lot of tech bros declaring that ChatGPT was a thing in the past. But then people started to see the reality. They said, like watching a toddler, you have to keep an eye on this so it doesn't do something stupid, Or after I waited for 3 hours, it didn't complete the task at all. That was it. And then Manus. Manus came out of China and it was immediately compared to OpenAI's most advanced agent work. The search interest really spiked, as you can see on this graph. Then it dropped and then it came back again. But keep in mind, the timing it came back was right after Meta announced an acquisition of Manus. So do we know exactly how many users are still live on Manus today? Now, Moltbot just looks like it might be following the same pattern. So here's the question. Why does this keep happening? 3 reasons here. 1. Timing. With Moltbot, it caught the AI agent wave. Goldman Sachs predicts like $700+ billion market by 2030. And everyone wants to believe that this is the moment. Now, second, people got really excited when they heard the word open source. So in the first few days of the release, it was on the top 10 list of GitHub trending, and then it was also on Hackers News discussions. And even a few influential developers started to retweet it, and that's how it started to hike up. Suddenly, it's just everywhere now. You can even find it on your feed. That's how you found me, right? And the third reason, finally there's something usable, the kind of hope. Because after years of disappointment, we really want to believe that this one is the one. But here's a sobering number. Gartner invented a term called agent washing. Estimated that there are among thousands of companies that claiming to offer AI agents, there are only like less than 10% are building genuine agentic systems. The rest is what the Salesforce CMO was predicting. In 2026, it would be the year of the lonely agent. Pretty much the companies that deploys tons of them, but mostly sit unused. Then I was talking to a friend about it. She pushed back on those points I just mentioned to you. She was saying that I am really impressed, but with Moltbot, I'm definitely recommending it. Just through chatting, I set up auto transcription from voice memos to notes, and then the interface was just WhatsApp. It already exceeds having a PA. And then I was saying, isn't it just an agent tool calling? Why is it even trending? But then afterward, when I was rethinking what she told me, it actually gave me a pause. Because yes, maybe the technology is new. The experience certainly is. Like if you think back LangChain, it can do agent plus tool calling, but you kind of have to write code and configure environments and deploy service or write APIs. With Moltbot, at least after you've done the setup, it would be like you type on WhatsApp and say, hey, help me do auto transcribe voice memo to notes. And then bot will be like, okay, let me write a skill. And after 10 minutes, the bot will be like, okay, it's done. It will now auto-transcribe from now on. And that was certainly a very different experience from tools like LangChain. So Moltbot might genuinely be different because yes, the setup is the cost. But once it's running, you just send a message and it works. Yes, both the command line and graphical interface can complete the task. But there is a reason why graphical interface become a computer mainstream. CloudBot might be the kind of usability shift. Same technology, but finally accessible. But then if we go a few more layers deeper, just trying to ask yourself a few more questions. Do you actually need a 24/7 running agent at all? Think about it, like daily auto briefing, sure. But do you actually read it every day? Or price monitoring? But how many times a month that it actually triggers? Or auto replying emails? Okay, but won't that cause some problems for you? Or if you think an AI can do your work or reply in your email, then maybe your boss should hire an AI. So here's my prediction. For 90% of people who install Moltbot, week 1, excitedly trying all the features. Week 2, occasionally remember to use it. When it gets to month 2, basically forgotten. Just like smart home devices, that I have seen so many people buy a bunch of smart gadgets and then ended up still flipping the switches with their hands. Because in real life, saying a voice command is never that much more convenient than pressing a button. So who exactly needs this? Needs Moltbot? For example, technical people automating workflows, CI/CDs, monitoring, deployment, or we can think of like heavy productivity hackers who are so obsessed with processing tons of repetitive works daily. Or specific enterprise might need 24/7 data monitoring, but not car buying, because normal people does that once every few years, right? And also not like file organizing, that feels like a one-time task, and certainly not predict market trading, because the risk just exceeds any benefits you can think of, unless you think an AI trades better than you as a human. Anyways, so here are 3 questions. Before you spend your weekend installing Moltbot, make sure you ask yourself this. 1. Do you really have truly high-frequency, repetitive, and autoable tasks? Not might have, actually have. Now, here's the second question. Can you stomach that technical barriers and debugging cost? You need to be honest. Because if your friend gives you a free puppy, technically free, right? But then there's food, vet bills, you need to take out to walk, you need to spend time with it. The puppy isn't the cost. Everything around the puppy is the cost. And then here's my third question. Do you genuinely need a 24/7 operation? What for? You need to be very specific about it. If any one of the answers is not sure, maybe not, I don't know, then it's probably just your FOMO talking. So what is the innovation really with Moltbot? Maybe the biggest innovation isn't inventing new technology, but making existing technology actually usable. But the actually usable is itself a hypothesis that needs some validations. And I don't think we have enough time with the tool yet. The real measurement of a tool isn't how many people cheer at the launch, but it's really how many are still using it 6 months later. Now, we have seen this episode before. The question isn't really whether Moltbot is impressive. The demos are certainly impressive. If you can confidently answer those 3 questions, then maybe worth exploring. If not, then maybe give it a second thought. Either ways, now you understand the AI agent hype cycle pattern, and you know the pros and cons of trying out Moltbot yourself. Now, all my research and reference data you can find in the article linked in the description. If you found this one useful, do share this video with someone you know who probably already downloaded and tried Moltbot. Please do subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have Moltbot installed for you and all the bugs solved. What kind of use case that immediately come to your mind that you want to give it a try? I'm curious about what you think. Again, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.